There was a rustle deep within the cargo boxes, a small rustle that shouldn't have been there. Goldie noticed it immediately. Her amber eyes locked onto an ordinary wooden crate standing among hundreds of boxes in the truck's trailer. The dog's body tensed. It was as if she had sniffed out an invisible danger in the air. Her ears pricked up. Officer Thomas Bradford didn't notice at first. He was busy inspecting trucks crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. It was another grueling shift. Endless paperwork and tired drivers drained all his energy. The dog stood motionless. She was staring at a single wooden crate labeled Industrial Parts, Mexico. Thomas gently tugged on the leash. "Come on, girl, let's move on." But Goldie didn't budge. She lifted her nose into the air. Something was wrong. She sensed something bad, very bad. And then, for the first time in her 6 years on Border Patrol duty, she did something she had never done before. She barked once. The sound was harsh, sharp, and warning. Thomas's eyes widened. He recognized that bark. It wasn't a drug signal. It wasn't a gun warning. It was something else. "Okay, girl, show me what it is," he whispered. Goldie lunged forward, her claws scraping the concrete. She maneuvered between stacked pallets and shipping containers. She stopped in front of a silver truck. The driver, Viktor Dragov, a large man, was the truck's owner. He was leaning against the cab, smoking a cigarette. He was too relaxed. He was confident. But when he saw Goldie, his hand trembled for a moment, just a second. But Goldie saw it. She growled. "She had unsettled Thomas, sir. We need to check your cargo." A fake smile appeared on Victor's face. "Everything is in the documents, officer. I have a schedule to keep. I don't have time for this." But Goldie didn't care about his schedule. He jumped onto the trailer. He pressed his nose against the wooden crate in the back. He was scratching. He was practically going crazy. Thomas reached for his radio. "We need backup at Gate 7, immediately." Victor's expression changed. That relaxed smile was gone. His eyes darted to the highway, the escape route. He was calculating. "Sir, open the crate," Thomas ordered. Victor hesitated. He panicked, and right then, Goldie made a move that stopped everyone's heart. She bit the corner of the wooden crate. She pulled with all her might. The wood cracked. Through that small crack, Thomas saw something terrifying. There were pale, trembling little fingers pressed against the crack from inside. "Open the box now," Thomas shouted. Victor tried to run away, but at that moment 2 officers jumped on him. His face was pressed against the cold asphalt. Before he knew what was happening, he was handcuffed. Thomas's hands shook violently as he pried open the box with a crowbar. Inside was a little girl curled up in a fetal position, on the verge of losing consciousness. Her mouth was taped shut. Her wrists were bound with plastic cable ties. She was sweating. Her lips were blue. She was gasping for oxygen. "Call an ambulance immediately." He carefully removed the tape from her mouth. The girl filled her lungs with air, coughing and quietly sobbing. Goldie pressed her wet nose against the girl's frozen cheek. The child's trembling hands reached out instinctively. Her fingers buried themselves in Goldie's thick fur. She clung to her like a drowning person clutching a lifeline. "You are safe now," Thomas whispered. The paramedics arrived within minutes. The little girl was lifted onto a stretcher. An oxygen mask was placed over her face, but her eyes never left Goldie. Even as they loaded her into the ambulance, she looked back. She whispered words Thomas could make out even in the chaos. "Thank you." Viktor Dragov was led away in chains. He didn't say a word, but his phone told the whole story. Encrypted messages, bank transfers, delivery points in Eastern Europe. When forensic teams searched the truck, they found tranquilizers, fake passports, and a list. The children's names were written on it, and Goldie had been the one to stop all of this. When the snow started falling, Thomas knelt down next to his dog in the empty customs yard. He stroked its ears with trembling hands. "You saved that little girl's life." Goldie leaned against him, content that her job was done, but her eyes were still watching the road where the ambulance had disappeared. It was as if she wanted to make sure Jennifer was really safe. That night, Thomas couldn't sleep. He sat in his small apartment watching the news. The little girl's name was Jennifer Kovács. She had been missing for 6 days. She had been snatched from a park in Budapest when her grandmother turned her back for a moment. Her family was devastated. Interpol had been involved but found no leads. Until Golide found her. Thomas looked at a photo on his phone. It was Goldi's official K9 photo. "How did you know?" he asked. There was no one to answer, but Thomas knew deep down. Some things couldn't be taught. Some instincts ran deeper than training. Some bonds transcended species. And sometimes, the bravest spirit at the edge walked on 4 legs. But what happened next proved that Jennifer's rescue was only the beginning, because Viktor Dragov wasn't working alone. And Goldi's nose was about to uncover something darker than anyone could have imagined. 2 days after Viktor's arrest, Officer Thomas Bradford received an urgent call from Interpol agent Rebecca Stone. "We need Golide," Thomas frowned. "For what?" "Jennifer wasn't alone," Rebecca said. "We believe there are more children. They're hiding in containers waiting to cross the border, and we need your dog to find them before it is too late." Viktor Dragov wasn't just a driver. He was a key figure in an international network. Within hours, Thomas and Golide were flown to Hamburg, Germany, on a military transport plane. The destination was a massive cargo warehouse. Inside the warehouse, endless wooden crates and metal containers stretched out under cold fluorescent lights. All were connected to the network. The task was as simple as it was terrifying. Find the children. Golide began scanning the warehouse. Despite the diesel fumes and chemical smells, her nose was locked onto the target. Thomas watched her, holding his breath. She passed the first row, the second, the third. Then she suddenly stopped. Her tail lifted. She began scratching at a large refrigerated container labeled "Frozen Seafood, Spain." "Open it," Rebecca shouted. The locks were cut. The door opened with a cloud of icy vapor. The interior was filled with boxes of frozen fish. But Golide wasn't fooled. She dove inside. She pushed the boxes aside. She began scraping at the metal floor. "There is a false bottom," she yelled. When they lifted the panel, they found 2 children huddled together in the narrow, airless space beneath it. A boy and a girl. They were on the verge of hypothermia, minutes away from death. As the medical team pulled the children out, the little girl's eyes opened for a moment. She looked directly at Golide. Her blue lips whispered a single word: "You are an angel." But Goldi's work wasn't done. She ventured deeper into the warehouse. That day, she stopped at 3 more places. A 9-year-old boy in a box of agricultural equipment. A 6-year-old girl in a barrel of industrial chemicals. And finally, in a car engine container, 5-year-old twins clinging to each other. They were all scared. They were silent. Golide sat down gently beside them. She wagged her tail slowly. The twins didn't speak. They just buried their tiny hands in her reassuring fur. That night, Interpol made an announcement. Operation across 4 countries, 19 children rescued, 23 arrests. The human trafficking ring had been dismantled. 3 weeks later, at a ceremony in Brussels, all 19 rescued families were present. When Jennifer saw Golide, she let go of her mother's hand and ran. She wrapped her arms around the dog's neck. "You are my hero." Goldi's tail wagged slightly. The other children gathered around her too. They touched her, hugged her. One mother knelt down and cried. She thanked the dog repeatedly. Thomas stood back and watched. At that moment, he understood something very clearly. Sometimes the world was saved by the smallest acts of courage. By a dog that refused to leave, by instincts sharper than reason, and by a pure love that transcended language. Golide became a legend after that day. They called her the protector of lost children. But she remained the same, because for Golide, medals weren't important. What mattered was protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. What do you think?